Guess I wasn't just wasting all my time. Was wrong, so just a ride. So easily left behind. Do I have to talk to make bones to get the sound of the mind or your bones? Do I have to talk to make bones? Do I have to burn up the skin? I was left behind by a very cruel mind. I was left behind. And now I'm modulate the rest of my time. I modulate the rest of my time. Synthesis is just a piece of pain, and that synthesis is just more pain, and that synthesis is just a lot of pain, and that best is just a lot of shame. Do I have to scream at you through a microphone? Get you all alone. Do I have to scream at you and shake your bones? Or do I have to scream at you in this tone? Tone that you don't really know what you like to leave love in the cold. There's so much. I don't think you know what real emotion is. It just took it like the fist. You know what real emotion is. It threw back and I slapped your wrist. It's that love is. Good love is. What love is. What love what love is. What a bastard kiss. Shit. And that just what love is. What a bastard kiss. What that's just what it is. And that's just what it is. That's what it is. Just what it is.
This is Family Like a Ghost, and this is our continuing series of song deconstructions. Talking about the new song we wrote called Wretched Promises in the Dark, which we call a PsyTrance Experience. We typically put together songs using our hardware workflow in a stream of consciousness kind of jam band fashion where we roll the tape, in this case digital tape, on a Zoom R24 24 track recorder while we manipulate our analog and digital synths. We've got um, two Moogs, a Moog drummer from another mother, a DFAM, and a Mother 32. And we also have an Arturia Mini Brute 2S. And we have the Moogs all in our Arturia Rack Brute 6U, along with a Make Noise um, math module, utility module, and a Make Noise Morphogene sampler. Everything gets routed from the Eurorack using a Pittsburgh Instruments 2x4 Eurorack mixer, which allows us to take the VCA signals from all the modules and mix them at particular levels before we even bring them into our initial mixer, which is a Roland MX1 performance mixer, and then we take that mix and bring it into the Zoom. On top of that, we use the Juno GI Polysynth as our primary keyboard, and then we have a JVXI stacked above it, and then a BeatStep Pro. If everybody's seen our Instagram, you can see that rig, how it's set up, and I use a combination of like a wireless headset in some cases, and then I have a Studio Electronics full studio mic with shielding on it um, for deeper, higher quality recording of vocals. And so what I've done with this song is I kind of let the tape roll and came up with this stream of consciousness lyric, basically Josephine ranting about being done wrong by her lover. And What I did though different is I didn't use the DFAM for a drum beat. I actually used the Arturia Mini Brute 2S, and the 2S can operate like a drum machine. It has the ability to create a really good modular, modulated rhythm using its capabilities. And I started to play with the step sequencer and then play with the filter. And this system, it has like a dual multi-mode filter, and it has a really interesting ADSR with a loop capability. And so I used those capabilities to create a drum beat, and I played the filter. Like I've talked about before with these analog synths, you can actually do the knob per function, play the envelopes, manipulate the envelope, manipulate the filters, manipulate the oscillators with the knobs while you're rolling tape. And that is, and then you also can switch, your level, your pulse width, or your FM modulation. And so a lot of times in a ghost song, when I'm rolling the tape, I do that. In this particular song, I did that. I did a lot of manual manipulation of um, on the Moogs, the actual ladder filter, and then on the Arteria, the multi-mode filters, I actually manipulated the dials. I've also done that on the Make Noise Morphogene, and the Morphogene is a recurring instrument I use a lot. I tape. I actually record a family like a ghost song as a sample, and then I run it either as a backwards tape loop or a forward loop, or I play the filter, where I actually, manipulate the controls on the make noise morphogene like the way I do on the Moogs, and play with the controls on the actual instrument, changing the speed of the sample, changing um, the actual composition of the sample, morphing the time scales and the time periods on it, where I can kind of make different points in the sample collide. So I do a lot of that on top of the other stuff I'm doing. I've been using the VTO3 vocal transformer for Josephine Electric's voice. Um, and this song, basically is a stream of consciousness lyrics that I just have Josephine kind of doing a recurring theme of what happens when your lover isn't who you think they are, or you're not even who you think you are in the looking glass, and you're not really matched, and it ends up becoming a whole wretched promise that's broken. And that's the whole feel of the song. It's really the construction and the way I built the song that has a lot of the tricks that I use, using the synths that I use, the analog and the digital combined. And that kind of goes into a couple of things. I'm looking forward to getting an OPZ from Teenage Engineering. That's their great little workstation that's the size of a TV remote. I'm very interested in seeing what I could do in like bedroom recording. You could actually take this thing because it's so small and be like laying in your bed, you know, and write a song, and then bring that into the workflow. One of my concepts would be to write a demo on a OPZ, and then bring it in to my morphogene, and then alter it there and track it to my Zoom. Another method would be is to run it into my MX1 performance mixer and run the step sequencing that runs all the effects on different steps as an additional edit, and roll the tape on that. So, or even just run it um, completely into my workflow, and then add overdubs with the Moog and the other instruments I've talked about. And I think it would be really cool to use it for performance when you have to have a lighter presence. So if anybody see my rig on the internet, it's a heavy thing to move around. So if I had an OPZ as my primary sequencer, and then brought my Eurorack, which has the DFAM in it, so I'd have a drum machine. It's got the morphogene for sampling. It's got the Arteria Mini Brute 2S for more pad control. And then my other idea would be able to get like the new Roland Axe and use that as my primary keyboard, and then just have that in a, and I would have a very much a lower footprint for my show. Maybe bring my studio electronics microphone, but I bring my wireless mic. And the cool thing about the accent is it actually has the ability to it has a voice recorder inside of it. So it necessarily might not need the VTO3, but it might because it has maybe deeper options. Um, but it just there's a lot of cool things about some of the synths out there. The accent now has Bluetooth manipulation from your iPhone to update it. The Teenage Engineering, you can get your sound engines from iOS directly, which is really cool. So then if you have your iPhone, you've got your OPZ, and you got your mini, your Eurorack, and maybe your keyboard. In this case, I'm saying Band Axe. You can have a pretty good performance, and then you can be out front. One of the things right now when I'm recording, I'm behind my stack of keyboards. So if I had the axe, I could kind of get out front. And if I did a full show, like when I do a full show, I do bring my full rig with my road cases and everything, and all that entails. If I had to do a show at a festival, I would bring the full rig, but having the axe would be great to be able to get in front of it and provide the performance that is typically seen from a guitar player. Because you could be in front of the rack and you could be soloing and doing all kinds of cool things. The other thing, excuse me, that I'm very interested in, and jumping in on the conversation that's been talking, everybody's been talking about the new release from Moog, the Moog One. And a lot of people have been complaining about the price. Uh, on Sonic State, there was a good statement about it's not that it's the price, it's the fact that you can't afford the price. Because you got to think about it, this is a boutique, this is like a flagship instrument, similar to when the Prophet 5 came out or the Roland Jupiter 8. At the time, the Jupiter 8 was very expensive. Not everybody could get it. It's a flagship. The Prophet 5 was very expensive. Nobody could really get it. The Poly Moog was expensive. The Memory Moog was expensive. Just because something's expensive doesn't mean it's not good. This means that you can't afford it. And when there's a flagship instrument, it's meant for the upper tier of musicians or the people who feel that it's worth sacrificing their funds for it. If you think about what this instrument represents, is Moog has not been in this area for 30 years. And when they did have instruments, the Poly Moog and the Memory Moog, they're very significant instruments. They had capabilities that other instruments didn't have. If you're a musician, you're always looking for that tone or that sound that makes you go get that particular instrument. If you look at all the great guitar players, they have hundreds of guitars, if not thousands of guitars, because each guitar has a unique sound. Synths are the same way. We have tons of mono synths, and there's always a reason for somebody to get a mono synth. In a lot of cases, mono synths aren't super expensive or not beyond the range of most people, so there's no complaint. Except when you get to the higher end, like a Model D, maybe there's a complaint. But if you think about polysynths, they're analog. They're far and few between. You have the Prophet 5, you have the OB6, you have some stuff from Waldorf. You got some things out there uh, that are very interesting, but Korg got the Prologue now, but there's nothing like this Moog One. It's a 3 VCO, not DCO. They're not digital oscillators, they're analog oscillators. And it's multi-tremble, which I don't see any other instrument being that. So this thing is actually 3 polyphonic synths in one. There's nothing like that. The fact that you could, on the 16 voice, have 48 oscillators firing off, that's incredible. And if you think about if you can do that on all three, think about that. And then the fact that Moog finally has multiple LFOs going back to the modular days that you can route any way you want. And we finally have two filters, a ladder filter and then a multi-mode filter. And you have just the aspect of this is a high instrument with a Fatar keyboard, oak cabinet. It's aluminum, it's not plastic, except where, plastic is warranted. The fact that it can save tones and it can save projects. It has sequencers on all three synths from the multi-tremble level. You're talking about a flagship instrument, and it can't be understated that this is an instrument for people who feel it's important to have Moog doing a polysynth. And then the other thing, I think a lot of people, there's some people that would say, well, polyphonic analog synths didn't really fully take off because they take up too much headroom in the mix. But that's if when you're mixing, you don't think a synth should be out front. If you think other instruments should be in front. So if you're a synthesist, if you're somebody that believes in the new wave, you believe in craft work, you believe in the synth can be up front, and it is its own um, tone that deserves to be up front, then this is the kind of instrument you want, because this is the kind of thing that I think a band like Churches would create very heavy new wave song operas, story songs, the progressive bands that want to push the envelope like a Radiohead or Wilco. This kind of machine is keyboard is going to give a keyboardist somebody like that could play at the level of a Keith Emerson or Wakeman or Stevie Wonder. It's going to give those players the ability to put together songs and soundscapes and sound paintings that have a flavor and a color that we don't have today. And I think it would give new musicians a way to build very complicated music. Now, if you've got a punk aesthetic and you say, well, I don't need that. But, even if you do have a punk aesthetic and you think about like the industrial music, this is going to give you such a fat sound that as a keyboard player, you could go into a club and have something as heavy as Jimmy Page coming out, something as heavy as Pete Townsend coming out, but from a keyboard perspective. And there's music that can use that. A lot of the ghost music is the fact that we want to are frustrated. I'm a frustrated guitar player that couldn't play guitar, and I try to do it to my keyboard. This type of instrument that has this kind of power would allow me to do my kind of heavy synth hardcore playing, and it would really fill the room. Is what a synthesist that wants to use an analog synth usually wants to fill the room with a vibe that they need the power to do that. And yeah, a DX7, and if you go back in the day, um, the D50 allowed artists to do a more nuanced mix, and it was maybe less booming and less uh, you know oppressive in the mix. It didn't take over the whole sound. But that was what they wanted to do. If you're doing atmospheric music, yeah, you don't want to be that aggressive. But if you're doing something else that's more punk aesthetic, that's more like in your face, having an instrument that can really cut through the mix and be that powerful is is a particular, desire for certain artists. And so I would think, yeah, maybe some artists that want to be more nuanced wouldn't want that kind of overpowering sound. But I'm going to be the kind of guy that wants that overpowering sound. And I think I want to be able to use it to prove that synths can be there. Like a punk guitar player or a heavy rock band or a heavy metal band, you can have that sound. I think Trent Reznor shows what you can do there. I think Churches shows what you can do when you put the synths up front. Um, so I think that if you think going back to Joy Division, going back, to a lot of the bands like Duran Duran, using the Jupiter 8s, there's a reason to have the synths that much up front if you want to go that way. And I think it would bring back maybe a new era in progressive rock, and some people would be like, "Oh, I don't like progressive rock; it's too overwrought." Well, you know what? There's a place for that type of music, and like I said, I have a punk aesthetic, and there's a lot of synth players, industrial synth players, cyberpunk players, techno punk, uh, that have a desire to do a darker, harder edged synth work. And everybody goes and say, "Well, Pretty Hate Machine's a good example of that," and what is true. And that is the kind of power that I like to put into a song. And you hear a song like "When Miss Electric Comes to Town" from the Ghost, from Peg. It's coming from that kind of Husker Du replacement, Sex Pistol zone, Clash zone. That you can use a synth like that, And if you have a synth that's that booming and that powerful, I think you could use it to that degree. So for all those who think it's too expensive, just remember the Model D was the price of a car. The Moog One is not the price of a car because you can't buy a car for $8,000 brand new. You can buy a used car, but you can't buy a brand new car. And back in the day, the Model D cost what a brand new car cost. So I think you got to take it relative to that. And the fact that it's a flagship instrument, it's like a Jupiter 8, it's like a Prophet 5, it's like a Hammond organ. It is a high tiered instrument. And if you feel as a musician, not as making a profit, but as a musician, that you bring something to you and you put your effort into, like I work Uber, and I work Uber and Lyft. I might work a lot of overtime hours, work a lot of extra hours to be able to get this because I feel that it's going to bring me a palette that nothing else is going to have. And so there's a reason to get it, whether or not you make a profit or not. Sometimes making music is not about making a profit. If you think about the great poets, a lot of them were not successful in their lifetime. A lot of great bands, from the Velvets to Big Star, were not successful in their lifetime. Doesn't mean they didn't go and invest in their equipment and find the right guitars, find the right keyboards, find the right things to do, and spend the time, spend the money to do their art because they felt the need to do the art. So I think there's a misunderstanding from the home market that all stents have to be cheap to be egalitarian, but you got to remember, like you as an artist need the sound that you need, and a lot of times you'll go and do whatever you can to do it. And there's a lot of people that are saying it's too expensive, but they still run down a Polymoog and they're going to spend like $8,000 on a Polymoog. And this machine is better than the Polymoog. It's going to be more reliable than the Polymoog and bring you a sound that Polymoog can never do, and probably in the same space that a Polymoog was in. And you could actually take it on the road and use it. Where the Polymoog, you spend $8,000 for an old one, you're probably gonna not want to take it on the road in fear that you're gonna wreck it. So there's reasons to look at what Moog is doing. Moog has been steadily bringing their old technology to the market. They've been very fair, I think. If you think about what they did with the grandmother, they provided this year access to modules that were in machines that cost tens of thousands of dollars. A Model 33 is like $33,000. Model 55 is like 45 to $50,000. There are modules on the grandmother from those modules, from the original Moog um, um, systems, modular systems, and they're totally out the range of every hobbyist. But now they put them at a level on a build quality that's as good as a Model D. So for all those who complain about the price, look at what Moog's giving. He gave you a DFAM, a Mother 32, and a grandmother, all within the range of most hobbyists, and give you a level of quality you can't get from a VST or a soft stent. And so for the higher end market, there are a lot of higher end guys are using those instruments, but they would be preferred to have a full polyphonic stent if they could. And this gives them the ability to have that. And you could still have a grandmother with a Moog One. There's a reason to. There's a spring reverb in the grandmother that's not in the Moog One. There's some filters and mechanisms in the grandmother that aren't in the Moog One because it's using mini Moog VCOs, and the new VCOs are different. So they can both live in the same space. They're two different things. They have different sounds. They don't sound the same. They're going to be different because the oscillators are different. And so there's a reason. And this is the same thing with the subsequent 37. The subsequent 37 oscillators are not mini Moog oscillators. They're their own thing. So now Moog's got the oscillators from the subsequent 37, which are not the same as the Model D. The Model D has its own oscillators. The grandmother uses oscillators that are based on Model D, and now we have these brand new oscillators for the Moog One, which have never been seen before because they work with a multi-mode filter and a ladder filter. So I believe as a musician, I don't think a lot of people would complain if somebody's looking for a custom guitar from the 50s or 60s and spend a lot of money on that. There's a tone in that guitar that's worth getting that instrument. And I think with a synth, I think it's like a Hammond organ. There's a reason to get a classic Hammond organ. There's a reason to get a Steinway. People need to think as a keyboard player, not just an electronic musician. I think they would understand more, like having a really high quality keyboard in the synth market that's not just a price point system, but something that is going to allow players that can play keyboards. Uh, I think there's been people have been forgetting about the people who are actually musicians that can play keyboard, not just producers that use MIDI keyboards that aren't traditional keyboard players. Now, Moog did design the Moog initially to not even have to be a keyboard player. It didn't have a keyboard. And alternative input methods go back to the day of the complement B sequencer. You didn't need to have a keyboard to trigger a Moog. You could just do it from the Moog without the keyboard, with the complement B or similar devices before the complement B came to life. So I am fully aware that I have alternative keyboard methods. I have, an Arturia BeatStep Pro. I have a Mini Group 2S with the sequencer with the pads. I do a lot of creation of songs with pads because it gives you a different way of doing it than the traditional keyboard. But when you do need to use a chord, which I think the Moog One is going to bring back the use of two-fisted chords in electronic music. And not only that, because it's multi-tempo at 3 levels, you could have six you could have 6 sets of chords being done in a song with polyphonic voicing from an analog VCOs. And that can't be stated, even understated, is the fact that that's going to give you a sound and a complexity in the tone because of the use of the chords. That when you're a songwriter, chords are very important to the feel of a song, and a lot of times in this monophonic, um, analog synth focus, where people have been just using these monophonic synths and layering one note at a time in sequences, I think people have forgotten about the chords. And chords are very important. On the OPZ, one of the coolest things is the fact that you can do chords on that system. It's not just monophonic. And I think chords give you a color to your sound and to your melodies that is very important to a song structure. Not saying that you can't do songs without it, because there's a lot of songs that have been created in the last several years using just monophonic synths and layering them, which can be done. But if you're a keyboard player, being able to actually play at the instrument in a more traditional way is sometimes useful for the structure. And then you can still have the monophonic experimentation and sequencing happening around it or in the song itself. Doesn't mean you can do one or the other. You can do both. And I think the Moog One and the Prologue, um, the OB6 and the Prophet 6 are all the types of instruments that you do that with. But the Moog One jumps to the front of the line because it's 3-part multi-tremble. It's got 3 VCOs firing off with polyphony. They got 48 oscillators in unison that are analog in nature. And so I'm going to get off my soapbox for that. I feel that the Moog One is totally justified. It's a revelation. It's going to create a whole new level of electronic music for those who use it. I do feel for those that might not be able to get it. Hopefully, there'll be a rack mount version of it at some point, or even a VST version, but that kind of goes away from the original concept because the VST, in my opinion, could never fully match the full sound of this thing because analog is the whole purpose. So that's it for today. We're going to be talking to Kendra Black tonight on Anchor. We're going to redo our interview with Stefan Kidd because we had some sound quality issues. And then we're going to continue our performances on Facebook. We're going to be on deck to do a YouTube video or Facebook video of our OPZ once we get it, and we're going to put together a song. We're going to go through that in the future when we get it in November. Thank you. This is Van Electric Ghost, and we're pushing our brand new record, Dark Ghost Volume 1, which is going to be on Diggers Factory Records. And so if you go to https://www.diggersfactory.com/vinyl/226598, you can get our brand new album on pre-order. Comes out in April. We have 196 copies out of 200 left. It's $24 plus shipping and handling. It's a 2 vinyl album. It is our statement on electronica, experimental music, and progressive trance. It is mastered for vinyl, and it's our first vinyl record. It's part of the Dark Ghost series of records. So again, it's www.diggersfactory, that's DIGGERS factory, all one word, .com/vinyl/226598. And we'd appreciate your order, and we'll be very happy that you're checking out our music, and we'll be very supportive of you as a fan, because we'll give you some cool goodies if you sign up. So please check it out. It's www.diggersfactory.com/vinyl/226598.